Welcome into Courtside Seats with Kroeger, a Charlotte Hornets podcast. Here he is, Chris Kroeger.
So this is fun. We get to take the podcast on the road, and we're here in fabulous Las Vegas. I'm looking out. Deserts out in the distance, mountain range, all these high-rise hotels. We're here at Aria, and I'm joined by Hornets assistant coach, the head coach for the Summer League, Jay Hernandez. Jay, what's up, man? It's good to see you.
It's great to be here. Yeah.
So welcome to my hotel room.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the power of radio here. People don't even realize we're hanging out in my hotel room right now. We got a couple of microphones, and we're just going to talk some hoops for a little while.
I love it.
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
So you're new to Charlotte. Like everybody, I feel like everybody's new to Charlotte right now. So for you, what's it been like the last couple of weeks? Well, it's really been about a month or so for you.
Yeah.
What's it been like just trying to get adjusted and try to call Charlotte home now?
It's been a little bit of a whirlwind. We came in town with my daughter, one of my two daughters, and my wife to get situated and do all the human resources and all that kind of stuff. And my wife found a job, and she found a house in one day. So that was a successful
That's Wonder
day.
Woman right there.
Yeah, she's amazing. So she did that. And we went back to Orlando, and I was ready to come back by myself to get situated with the guys on the team and start doing some workouts. And Coach asked me to go to Madrid to work with Billy. So went out there and spent a few nights with Billy and got to see him work out. And I got a chance to work him out as well and build that relationship. And while I was there, I think it was the day before I was going to come back, Coach asked if I could go to Paris and work with Batum for 2 weeks, and I was on my way back to Charlotte. So the timing wasn't, the scheduling wasn't the best, but so I ended up coming back Wednesday night to Charlotte, spent a few days there, and then went right back to Europe.
No joke,
yeah.
You flew right back out.
Yeah, I went right back out Saturday and spent 2 weeks with Batum. So that was a great experience. Got a chance to work every day with him, and just to see a guy going to year 11, wanting to do two-a-days by the time I left there was really impressive. And flew back to Orlando. My wife was handling all the moving and all the things that needed to be taken care of there. And then we basically drove on Sunday, that Sunday, and found out I was going to be coaching that Sunday. And we had about a week left until training camp, So it was really like a crazy few weeks for me. Haven't really got settled, haven't really slept in my own bed yet. But I'm really excited to be in Charlotte. We finally got settled into our home. And I think the kids are going to love it. We're right in between New York and Florida, two places that we've lived, and I think it's a great situation.
I'm tired just listening to you. Like what you just said, that's been over the span of what, about a month?
Yeah. So it's been great. It's been a different type of crazy, and like I said, anytime Coach asks, it's like, yeah, let's get it done.
Well, and those are crazy opportunities, right?
Yes.
Like to be thrown to the fire right away, and hey, go swing to Madrid. Go say hi to Billy.
Right,
and then,
right.
Oh yeah, by the way, Nick would like to see you for a little while. Go to Paris. I mean, those are once in a lifetime opportunities.
Yeah, without a doubt, and that's the cool thing about it. I've been fortunate to go to Paris the last 3 years to work with Evan Fournier. So I was familiar with the area and some of the people that were even around Nick's camp, and so it was really cool just to get out there, decompress a little bit, watch a lot of game film on Charlotte from last year. We had our video guys did a great job of putting some stuff together for me, so I can do my study while I was on the road, and then with Nick, it was just a good opportunity to just get out there and build a relationship. And there's nothing like going to somebody's home, hanging with their people and breaking bread and that kind of stuff. And then when it comes back to Charlotte, we'll just pick up right where we left off.
Because so much of this is about relationship building, which we'll talk about that throughout the course of the podcast. I think what's really interesting too is fans are trying to get to know, okay, who's JB and who's Jay Hernandez and who's Chad Iskey and who's Dutch Gately and who are all these coaches now that are the coaching staff for this team. And you come from Orlando, you were there for 4 years. The last year you got bumped up as a full-time assistant coaching member. You were doing skill work before that. So yeah, you were with the Magic before that for the last 4 years.
Right. Yeah. So I came before that. I ran my own business for 10 plus years, doing basketball training, and we had a really, really good program. And we worked with girls and boys of all ages, pros, and I had 6 trainers under me. So we were able to create a really nice culture. The NBA wasn't something that I was thinking about ever. I didn't have my resume out. I wasn't hanging out at Vegas Summer League and handing out resumes or anything like that. It was just a great opportunity with the guys that I had been working with that Orlando caught their eye because they had a lot of guys that were in the lottery those few years. And a bunch of those guys were guys that were working out with us in Long Island at that point in time. So that's how I got in. And then the 4 years in Orlando, each year I was able to meet some really great people. It started with the group with Jock Vaughn and JB. And unfortunately, the staff got fired 52 games in, and JB got bumped up to the interim. So I was able to bump up to the bench with him. And I was green to the league. And just the same thing, just get baptized by fire. And it was a great experience to be able to do that with him and be a part of that, as well as Coach Igor, who's now in Phoenix, was a part of that group that came in for a temporary stint. And so I've seen a lot over the last few years. And by year 3, by the time Frank Vogel got there, he basically said, I want you to have a full rate of game scouts. And that's what helped me get to the bench last year. Was the year prior, I was just working with guys, but also had 20-plus games that I was responsible for.
How rare is that to have a new coach come in and you stay on staff, and then on top of that, you built such a rapport with him where he's giving you more, saying, right. No, I need more from you.
Yeah, I never thought that I would really have a chance to grow that much because there was change every year. And I felt like I built really good relationships with each head coach, and I'm still close with all of them. But I just didn't know how that would translate to me succeeding in this field because I had to start over every year. I had to build the trust of the coaching staff. I had to show what I could do and what I was hired for. But by the end of the year, they always gave me a little bit more to take on. And so it was a tremendous opportunity with Coach Vogel to say, yeah, we believe in player development, but we also believe in you as a person, as a coach, and we want to give you more. And if you're willing to take it, we're going to give you what you can handle. So that was phenomenal. And then by the time last year came, I was still doing my regular duties and was able to be on the bench and see it from a different perspective there with the guys.
That's cool. So one of the other things is, as I said, all these other coaches, you guys have some working relationships and knowledge of one another, but you're like the team. You guys as a staff are trying to build chemistry, I would think, right now. Without a doubt.
And it's great. Just by having a dinner with somebody, you get an opportunity to talk and find out about family. A lot of our coaching staff is still trying to get their families to Charlotte. And some people are going to be visiting here as well in Las Vegas, and we're going to get together. And that's the first part of it, is just making sure that everybody feels comfortable. And you start building that rapport and building that network with everybody there, because as coaches, we're on the road a lot. And so to have that support system in a new place and a new environment is really important.
JB's demeanor, I like his demeanor. He's got a very measured, calm demeanor about him. He's got a way about him. He bring that family atmosphere to you guys as a staff? Does he set the agenda and it fall top down like that?
Without a doubt. That's what he's about. And his family's great. You're going to see his kids running around the gym all the time, and as well as you'll see mine. And he's establishing that already. So I think having that family atmosphere and having the coaches feel comfortable having their kids in the gym and in that environment just makes us feel appreciative and want to do more for him. So I think that's what you're going to get out of the coaches.
Well, what do you think of Charlotte as a city thus far? As you said, geographically for you, it's located in a great spot. It's interesting. Like, to me, I don't know. It's different for me because I've seen the city just change so drastically since I've grown up here. But I think we got a lot going for us, right? We're a good-sized town, not too big, not too small. We got the mountains a few hours away, the beach a few hours away. I think you're going to like it here.
I'm going to love it. And I tell you, every year we came to Charlotte, I would tell my wife, it's a great place. I just love going out, finding new places to go eat, walk around. I like that there's some semblance of seasons. Being from New York, I like to see the trees change color. And
I'll warn you now, though, like when it snows, we get an inch of snow, schools are shut down. Okay, I'll warn you that right now.
Yeah, no, that's what I heard. I think that's pretty funny because we would have like 8 inches of snow and we'd be shoveling and trying to get them. They're still going to school. So that'll be good when that happens. I'm going to laugh about that. I'm going to take a picture of the walkway and tell everybody we're not going to school today.
But here's the problem, okay? So you're from Long Island, and we'll talk about this, but you're from up north. So you know good food, right? Like great pizza, bagels. Yep. We don't have stuff like that around here. I mean, it's slowly because people like you are moving down from the north, but I think it's something in the water up there, right? Like anytime you go make like pizza dough or bagels, so I'm just warning you now, like it's good, it's getting better. Right. You're going to miss some of those things.
I've been in Orlando for the last 4 years, so I'm aware it's hard to find really, really good Italian food. You start to get a little spoiled, but I'm definitely getting put on to some different spots. I'm not too far from South Carolina, so there's a lot of good areas, I'm sure, that I'll be able to find some good eats.
So let's talk about you for a second. Personally, you're from Long Island, right?
Yes.
New York City, born and bred.
Yeah.
You wear that as, I feel like everybody that's from Kemba is one of these guys who's from the Bronx.
Yes.
Different neighborhood, but I feel like you're from that part of the country. That's a badge of honor. You wear that proudly to say, yeah, I'm from New York. I'm from Long Island.
Without a doubt. Everybody who knows me, knows I'm very proud of Long Island and the roots and the history there from Dr. J to Billy Joel. And I feel like some of the Long Islanders that played basketball like myself, you almost have to prove yourself twice over because everybody gets the credit in the Bronx or Brooklyn, and Queens has some really good talented players. And so you look at all the landscape of the players to be able to stand out as somebody that's coming from Long Island. It means a lot.
You know who else is from Long Island? Mitch Kupchak.
Yes.
Mitch is a Long Island guy.
Yeah. So
you guys feel like you're forgotten in the grand scheme of things when it comes to, because people say New York City basketball, but you feel like as a borough, Long Island, you guys are just kind of, you guys are pushed off to the side.
Well, yeah, because we're not even considered a borough.
Yeah,
so
it's
that's
true.
right. Yeah, we're just we're out there, and we're kind of on our own. But even from a standpoint of my training, I took a lot of pride in having all of the top talent from New York City, metropolitan area, come to us in Long Island, and I felt like we were our own little boutique there that people were trying to figure out what do they have going for them there. And so it's definitely a special place. The same thing. We're surrounded by water, a lot of good places to eat, and just being able to grow up there and raise my family for a while there, and also play basketball at Hampshire University was a tremendous thing for me, coming up the pipeline.
What was your family like? You have any brothers or sisters?
Yeah, I have a sister, younger sister, Nicole. She still lives in Long Island. My parents are also in Long Island. They live over in the Northport area now by the beach. They downsized their house, and they've got a nice place there. And my in-laws are also in Long Island, so it's a extended family. Everybody's there. A lot of love, and I love going back there, for a few weeks if I get the opportunity in the off season and spend some time.
You feel like people still root for you back home? Like they're always keeping an eye on what's Jay doing? What's Jay up to?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think just because I never expected to be in this field, so I think they think it's very cool, and I wanted to make sure that everybody knew that they were a big part of why I'm here, that they didn't look at our program as just a kids program, and that every kid that came in there that believed in me, every family member that believed in our program really helped me get to this point. And I think a lot of that, dealing with different personalities, different age groups, helped me a lot in terms of getting to the NBA and being able to deal with all the different personality types and be able to get creative with the way I want to teach and the way I want to train guys on the court. And I've seen pretty much everything that there is to see on the basketball court from a training perspective and how to reach guys. And I think that was all predicated on all those years being in the gym, 10, 12-hour days with a variety of different skill sets and different genders and socioeconomic backgrounds, you name it.
Sports always big for you as a kid growing up?
Yeah, basically my father played on the Puerto Rican national team, so I was in Puerto Rico from maybe the age of 2.5 to about 7, and
then that's when you guys moved to New York.
Yeah, we went back. So we were in New York originally, and we moved down to Puerto Rico just so that my dad could continue to pursue the national team, and they made the Olympics. He was on the national team the year of the boycott, so he didn't get to participate in the Olympics. But I have a little jersey that when I was the mascot, I used to run around at 4 or 5 years old at the arena and shoot hoops and make baskets, and the crowd would go crazy. And it was a great experience. So I could still have some early memories of being in the arena, just following my dad, having my own gym bag, and hanging out like I was one of the guys. So I basically just loved basketball, and I tried other sports. I played a little tennis in middle school, and tried football. But by the time I got to high school, it was basketball all the time for me.
Do you think that's where you caught the bug? Those moments where you're hanging around your dad, his teammates, the crowds, seeing and even then you probably don't recognize what it means to be a professional, but do you think that's when you got the bug to, man, I really want to keep doing more of this. I want to keep growing as a basketball player. Yeah,
I think that it was something that I just really enjoyed being around. My father was a big influence in my life, and just seeing him out there and participating in that, I loved all that. I loved the competition. I loved to see him compete. And then when I came back, I would just get creative with my own game and pretend I was out there being Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, all the guys that are out there, and just playing one-on-one against myself when I didn't have anybody else to compete against, and just worked on my game all the time. And I think because I wasn't a great athlete, it really helped my skill set as a trainer at that time, as a player development guy, because I had to figure out ways to get my shot off quicker. over guys that were more athletic, and that translated to helping guys that were more athletic that maybe had a little bit too much baby fat in their game. Where you get to the highest level, how do you basically just clean some of these things up that you can maintain separation to get your shot off against guys that are just as athletic as you are?
So you're how tall? 6 feet?
Yeah.
So when did you get to be that tall? Was that even late in high school? Or?
It was, yeah. I think, probably right around junior year. It was probably.
So you were always undersized, right?
Yeah. I was always undersized, and finally when I got a chance to play college basketball, it really came down to just being a good guard, and I loved to defend. I felt like I was a good glue guy, and got my teammates involved and did what I needed to do. So playing in college alongside Speedy Claxton, who was my backcourt mate, had a good run in the NBA. Playing for Jay Wright at Hofstra as well. My last year was his last year there before he went to Villanova. Played with Norman Richardson, who played in the league for a year. We had a really, really good squad. And for me to even step on the basketball court, I had to figure out what my role was going to be and how I was going to fill it. And a lot of that just came from just being solid across the board, whether it was ball handling, shooting the ball, defending. I had to make sure that I was good everywhere. Otherwise, they could find another 6-foot guy in any part of the country and have them play the same position.
I want to talk about that in a second. So let's go back to high school really quick. So you played St. Dominic?
Yes.
That's Oyster Bay, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Patino's from there?
Sure.
Former Hornet, original Hornet. Tim Kempton is from there.
Yeah.
Who else is from? Anybody else from St. Dominic?
Coach Willard coached there as well.
Okay.
So, yeah, he was there.
You, obviously.
Yeah. Jimmy Christian, who was been coaching at Boston College.
Yeah.
So, there's a good coaching lineage. Jimmy Moran is now, he's one of the summer league coaches here for Portland. He's an assistant over with the Portland Trail Blazers.
That's a good lineage. You guys got a good little group going.
Yeah.
So when you were in high school, what level was that relative to where, like geographically, the types of schools you were going against, the kids you were going against? How good a talent was it when you were in high school?
We had some good talent. I think the top 4 or 5 teams in Long Island, there was a couple of Division I players, that were there. Non-league schedule, we always played, the top teams. We would play LaSalle, we played Rice, we played Christ the King, Malloy. So we always tried to match up at that level, and then we would do a national schedule at times as well. We would go to the Above the Rim Classic at the time in San Diego, competed there our senior year, played against Crenshaw. I think they were top 5 in the country at the time. So the level of play for us was really competitive. We were a smaller school. Probably at that time they only had 4 classes, so we were at the Class B level. We're in one of the bigger schools, but because of our level of play, they kept us there, and we ended up losing my senior year in the state federation title to Elton Brand's team. He was a junior at the time, so we went into overtime and lost that one. It still hurts.
But you're sandbagging a little bit because you're like, I was a good player. I had to do this, I had to do that to compete. You were Newsday named you Player of the Year, right? In high school, your senior year.
Right, correct. I didn't know you
So
knew
trust me, I found out. No, that's pretty good. That's not like, I'm a cute little player and I got a school to give me an offer. You were a good high school basketball player.
I tried. Yeah, it was like I said, I tried to earn everything I had, and it wasn't the most athletic. I was never a guy who could dunk the basketball, but I think skill level wise, I got to be very good, and I think a lot of that translated from my time away from the game. A lot of people think you have to play 12 months out of the year and train every day. I actually had ear surgeries every year from the time I was about 5 or 6 years old. I still have almost 80% hearing loss on my right side. So when people talk to me, sometimes they think I'm ignoring them or whatever, and I had to explain to all the coaches, hey, if you're talking to me on the right side, I may not hear you. So every year I'd be out for 3 months. The equilibrium was affected. Basically, I couldn't run, jump, or swim or do anything for 3 months. I couldn't get hit in the ear. And right around the 2-month mark, I was able to start jumping, I think, and shooting jump shots. So I was away from the game. So I really appreciated when I got back to the workouts and just training, and it was something about it where I saw other people in the hospital that had been there for 3 to 6 months that couldn't train or couldn't do anything. I always knew I could get back, and I think that's what helped me really appreciate the game. And they always say when you appreciate something, you work harder to keep it, and that's
true.
Yeah,
there's a lot of truth to that. So. I'm a big believer in, and this is even at that level, like work-life balance, right? So finding those things that you love, that you want to pour yourself into, but also knowing when you got to step away, do things to decompress.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to find that balance. And so even to your point, maybe if it was forced upon you because of health issues in an odd way, that was a blessing for you.
Without a doubt. I think it helped me become more well-rounded. It gave me other things to do and think about, in terms of reading. And I ended up doing concert chorus in high school and just
you're a singer?
No, I'm not a singer. I actually, something happened to my vocal cord.
I used to sing. No, I was going to connect here for a second.
No. Yeah, no. I did. Originally, I just did it because the girls were pretty in concert chorus.
That's not a bad reason.
And then I stuck with it all the way through, and it was actually fun. It was something I got a chance to be in the school play my senior year. Even though we were going to the state tournament, I told them, I said, I can't have a big role because I've got other things that I'm trying to accomplish here. But they found a way to get me in there and do some things.
Did you ever meet any girls? Did it actually work, or was it?
No, it didn't work. Yeah, I did meet my wife in high school, but it wasn't because of that.
All right. So you go to UNH, right?
Yeah.
Out of high school initially, you go to New Hampshire. What other offers did you have? What led to that? What led to going to UNH? Yeah,
I had a bunch of pretty good offers. Most of them were mid-majors, so it was probably over 20 offers at that point in time. Davidson, UNC Greensboro in the North Carolina area, San Diego.
Bob McKillop always wants those guys from Long Island, right? He's always coming up there.
Yeah, my AAU coach ended up coaching with Coach McKillop for a while. Jim Fox, he ended up becoming a head coach.
At my alma mater, Appalachian State.
Yes,
that's my guy.
So he was my AAU coach. So there's a lot of history there. But I had a lot of pretty good offers, and Hampshire was one of them at the time. But I wanted to go somewhere where my family could see me play. And so in New Hampshire, I just built a new arena. I knew I was going to go there and start at the guard position right away. And we were going to play against Hofstra, Hartford, BU, Northeastern. It was all the local teams that my family could drive to. So that was a big thing for me to be able to go there. At the time, it was a really good hospitality management school. I thought that's what I was going to go into. And they had their own hotel on campus. And
so you thought you'd be managing this place we're sitting in right now is what you thought you would be.
I thought that could possibly be me, just shaking hands and kissing babies with a lot of people and networking, but it didn't work out.
So you go to UNH for a year. What happened in that year that led you to transfer?
Basically, for me, it was just about going back home and seeing what exactly was happening at Hofstra. And I fell in love. At the time, I just thought redshirting. Hofstra wanted to redshirt me for a year. They wanted to get some separation from me and Speedy. And but then when I saw the guys that they were bringing in, guys that I had competed against, and the level of play, I said, that's what I want. I want to be a part of. That's my style of play. And it led me back home. It gave me an opportunity to really do a lot of good things, and it was the biggest blessing for me because we ended up getting a chance to compete 3 times in the postseason in the NIT and in 2 NCAA tournaments, and do it with a bunch of guys that I really care about.
Jay Wright, I mean, that guy's got this charisma about him. He's got this way about him that I think it's no surprise now that he's won a couple of national championships. But when he first reached out to you and you first got to be around him, what were your initial impressions?
I was super impressed. He was coming in really nice suits along with the rest of his coaching staff.
That's never changed, right?
At the time it was Joe Jones, who's now the Boston University head coach, and Tom Pecora, who was lead assistant. That great career so far, and they were going everywhere, looking super sharp, and everybody was like, "Who are these guys?" And we would get letters at the time, and everything was "Peace, Coach Wright." And I remember that was like his tagline at the time.
He just seemed so cool, right?
Yeah, and so if you get him in any room with family members, he's going to sell you. And he was, that was my first impression, just thinking how polished he was, and he was really working hard too. It was one of those things. It wasn't just style. It was style and substance, and I think that's the difference between coach and a lot of people.
He could coach in the NBA. I know that that rumor always seems to linger. It's lingering now because he's won national championships, but he could do it. I think he's got that way about him. Because he gets animated at times, but I don't see him get too high or too low. I think he's got, if he ever wanted to, who knows if he does, but I feel like he's got that way about him. He could do that.
Without a doubt. I think he's one of the guys that all the GMs, I think, look at and try to take his pulse.
Can we pull him away?
Yeah.
He's got a good gig going at Nova.
He really does. To me, he's like royalty in Philly.
Yeah.
Just to have an opportunity to win those titles there, and he does a great job of incorporating alum and the community and all the stuff that they do there. So he could do whatever he really wants to do at this point. I really feel that. I think I do feel in a few years he'll be in the NBA exploring that. We've talked about it in the past about him potentially doing that, and I think it's a challenge that I think he would like. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see him.
Billy Donovan's done a great job, and I know it didn't work out initially in Orlando, and he decided to go back. And now when he's finally come in, I think he's fit in nicely. Tony Bennett, former Hornet Tony Bennett's another guy I think has that sort of disposition about him. That's a big part of it, right? Like you've got to have that. Because this is 82 games, it's just a different animal altogether. Yeah,
a lot of it is just, again, understanding the nuances of what you're dealing with throughout the season. You can't go off on guys all the time, otherwise they start tuning you out pretty quickly. So being able to delegate responsibility to a really good coaching staff is one of the ways that the best guys do it. They don't rely on having their voice all the time. So I know Coach does that with a lot of his staff. He does a great job of building those guys up and giving them a lot of responsibility, being able to talk with the guys and build those relationships. The other thing is just understanding who they are and how to reach them, because it's not just about the player, but it's also who's around that player. And so whether it's family members, it's a friend that they grew up with, an AAU coach, things of that nature, you have to understand who you're dealing with and who they listen to. And once you figure all that stuff out, it helps you, because you can start incorporating people into the process and saying, hey, this is what we see here for this player. And, you want to hear exactly what they're feeding them as well, so that you can start to have the same message.
So 98, 99, you guys go to the NIT, is that right?
Yes.
And then the next year, 99, 2000, Hofstra hadn't been to the tournament since like 77, I think. Yeah. And you guys break through. That had to be an amazing feeling, right? Long Island kid, Long Island school, break the streak.
It was great, especially to be able to play at home and do it. And at the time, the highest seed got a chance to compete at their home arena and do that and be on a big stage was phenomenal. So yeah, we had a ton of family and friends there, a lot of support, and just to be able to do that at Hofstra was amazing.
So you graduate from Hofstra, you go to Puerto Rico. You go play some pro ball over there.
I was actually I was going for my master's degree, so I was getting a dual MBA in marketing and management.
No big deal.
Yeah,
just a tiny detail.
Yeah, but I felt like having the combination of sports and my education was going to get me ahead in the corporate world. And so what they were doing was they were flying me down every Thursday to Sunday night, and I was playing while I was getting my degree.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So
you would take classes, what, Monday through Wednesday?
Yeah, and I'd fly out and then be there ready to play on a Thursday game up until Sunday.
Jay, are you insane?
Yeah, no.
How long did you do that?
I did it. I probably got away with it for about a month and a half, and then I was able to get there full time and finish out the season. And it was great. It was really it was a fun time for me. It was something that my wife and I always reminisce about. We had a great experience playing there. And then when I came back, it was trying to get a real job at that point in time. I figured, you know what, I don't want to move around. I had a lot of friends that actually played overseas, and my biggest thing at that time, I had my daughter, and I wanted to make sure I had some stability, and that was the biggest thing. It's like, can I find something that gives me that I can support my family and figure out where I'm going to go from there.
Which brings us to you start your own company, right?
Yeah, close to it. I did. Hofstra hired me as a director of strategic planning and admissions. It's a fancy title, but I was in there doing that for about 8 months. I was going to different college fairs and setting things up for our president, putting up some Excel spreadsheets. Then I got a pharmaceutical sales job for 2 years. And I was training on the side more than I was actually doing my real job. And so that's at that point in time, I told my wife, I said, I can't see myself doing this for the rest of my life. I love training. I had a couple guys that I was working with. Wally Zerbiak, a Long Island guy, was a guy that I worked with early in his career as my first MBA guy. And I just wanted to be able to have the flexibility to train whenever I wanted to. And I wanted people to know that this was what I did full time. There was really nobody else that I could look to in the New York area that had been doing it full time like that. So I had to use my education to figure out the logo design, basically coming up with the slogan, getting insurance, the facilities, incorporating and all that kind of stuff. And that's eventually I went back to Puerto Rico after a few years of a hiatus, got myself back in shape, went down there, came back, ran some camps, and I gave myself 6 months to go ahead and see if I could make it work and never look back.
Did you ever have moments where you doubted, when you threw yourself all into it. Did you ever have moments where you doubted, man, I don't think this is going to work, or I'm not finding enough guys to train, or this is too much of a headache, I'm not seeing the rewards, where's the light at the end of the tunnel? Did you ever have those moments?
No, I never thought why I chose this path. I'd always felt like I was chosen for the path. I love working with players. And then what happened was I started really hiring some great people that were leaving the coaching ranks or stopped playing overseas that wanted to be a part of what I was doing. And so it really became like a family atmosphere, and it was fun to go to work. And I felt like at one point in time, there was nobody in the world that put in more on-court hours than I did. I really, truly feel that. I was working some days from 8 a.m. till 10 p.m., Monday through Thursday, without a lunch or a dinner break. I would just go straight through. And then Fridays, it would be 8 to 5. Saturdays would be my off day, and I'd still put in a few hours. And then Sundays, I'd be at 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. again straight. So that was always during pre-draft all the way past the summer when we'd have camps. I'd have some of my pro guys come in at 8, go from 9 to 12, and then another guy would come at lunchtime, 12 to 1, and then finish out the rest of the day. So I think all of those hours and being able to stay steady and being able to give my best effort to the last person that came in, just like I did the first person, was something that I took pride in. And
so when did you start to really feel like the fruits of my labor are paying off? Kemba's one of your guys.
Yeah.
You've worked with some really, you mentioned Evan Fournier, worked with Jeremy Lamb was another one.
Sure.
You've worked with some really high profile names and guys that have gone on to have great careers. I think you're talking about 7, 8 first round draft picks, maybe even more than that. But when did you start to realize, man, all that hard work, it's starting to pay off?
Yeah, I think I never really sat there and said, wow, I made it. It was just one of those things that we kept working and we expected to get to a certain level. And so when we got to that level, we said, how do we get better at this? And I think probably when we started getting that first draft class was special for us. I was Kemba Walker, Charles Jenkins, who ended up getting drafted by the Golden State Warriors as a Queens guy. Tobias Harris, another Long Island guy, was in that draft. And there was something in the air about those guys. They really all took pride in being there, training, being New York guys, and then getting drafted. Once we started getting more of those guys each year, that's when we kind of knew, okay, we have something here, because this is something that we didn't have before. And that came with some sponsorships. I was with Under Armour setting up all their national camps at that time, grassroots camps. And we did a commercial with Kemba at that point in time, which ended up being national exposure for myself and the company. And then we did basically Under Armour, Muscle Milk. We had some pretty good sponsorships that we were dealing with. One of the things in New York that was the hardest thing was basically having guys stay with us for an extended period of time because it's so expensive. So we ended up having a Muscle Milk retreat house where they paid for the housing for our guys to come train.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are game changers. And then Kemba. So you get to work with Kemba. What was the connection there? How did you get plugged in with him? Or how did he get plugged in with you?
Yeah, because I knew Kemba. We knew of each other already. We had the chance through his agency. They recommended myself to work with him during the pre-draft process. They trusted the work that I had been doing with some of the guys that they had before. And he came off a national championship. He hadn't been doing much. And so when he came into the gym, it was a little bit of a rude awakening for him. I told him, I said, it's going to probably feel a lot worse now than it will in a few weeks, but we want to make sure that you stay sharp and you're ready for the NBA. And he was all about it. That was the one thing about him. He was definitely ready to work, and he was excited about it. And then he goes from a national championship to, one of the worst seasons, ever.
Yeah, 7 wins.
Yeah.
And, it's so funny too, because I think people have such a short-term memory. I remember when I shouldn't say our fans, but some fans, some NBA people would say, well, Kemba's not even a starting point guard in the NBA. A few years in. Forget an all-star point guard. He's not a starting point guard. Kemba can't shoot at all, let alone from the three-point line, which was, some of that was valid, by the way, shooting-wise. He was shooting 30% from three as recently as over 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Shooting like 35% from the field. He was struggling.
Yeah.
But he always put in the work. So when you saw what he did 3 years ago to break through and to just transform his game, the three-point shooting, you got to fight over on him. You can't stay under anymore. Now you mix in what he does off the bounce, the way he finishes at the rim for his size. You, among all people, you're probably not surprised by where he's at right now.
No, he always knew that he was going to get better. He's a guy that listens. He's a guy that takes criticism really well. And I knew he was going to find a way. And so after that first year where they struggled, he said, I have to get back in the gym. And he basically did that every summer. And I know the coaching staff in Charlotte did a great job working with him, and he utilized those guys. And I think when you see that from him, he always had that ability late game to create something special. And when you have guys that are willing to get the ball, take that last shot, that's something you really can't teach. And so Kemba always had that, and with his ability to keep improving, it just makes him that much more of a threat late game. So
when you get the call from Orlando, this is 2014.
Yeah.
That was the first time an NBA team had reached out to you?
I actually did an interview with the Knicks when Glenn Grunwald was there, Mike Woodson, and did a final interview with those guys. Coach Wright tried to get me to go to Villanova and coach there as well the year previous to Orlando. And I didn't have a lot of time to make a decision. I didn't have an exit strategy for my business at that time. So I had to say no to him at that point in time. But he said, you'll be in the NBA in a year or two. Trust me. And I wasn't even looking. I just kind of laughed it off. And, a year later.
But that tells you people are talking about you.
Yeah.
In a good way, right? Like
I think
people
so.
who make decisions, your name keeps coming up.
Yeah, I think it just came down to the overall work that I was doing and the guys that were coming out of the program that were definitely representing what we did. And I think that was the key. It was never really about me. It was just seeing them grow. And then when they kept growing, they were willing to come back and say, well, I'm working out here and I'm spending 2-3 months and I see the improvements, and they were making it known to people in positions of hiring positions. So that was the coolest thing about it is the way it happened was more so from other people talking than me saying, hey, I'm really good at what I do and I need you to hire me.
So when Orlando calls and you go through the process with them, what made that the time to say, you know what, let's do this. Because as you said, you never thought NBA for you.
Right.
That was never necessarily an end goal. So why the Magic? Why in 2014?
At that time, I figured if it didn't work out, that I can go back with an MBA resume into my training business. So I kind of looked at it from that standpoint and saying, that's like the doctorate degree of basketball. If you have MBA there, I already had the business. I come back with that, it's going to be very difficult for anybody in the New York area to compete with that. That was my train of thought at that point in time. I said, I'll do it for 2 years, and if it doesn't work, I know what I learned. I've learned a lot, and then I can go back and be even better.
Or it does work, and I'm an NBA coach,
Exactly.
Which is where you are today. Right,
and that's the cool thing. It basically it's very hard to break out of either the video room or the player development segment, because you get pigeonholed. You're very good doing drills all the time, or you're very good just breaking down film. And my thing is being able to just keep working and keep improving so that people could see he can do more. We can put more on his plate. And I think that came from having my own business, because I was wearing many hats. It wasn't just me being on the court all the time. I still had to do my own website. I still had to answer calls. I had to schedule, things. I had to be accountable for anything that went wrong. And so just by being accountable, I think coaches respected that when I came into the NBA. It wasn't about me. And I told them that. I said, why the NBA and why now? And the big thing about the NBA is I really miss competing, and having the chance to be a part of a team and competing was something that was very attractive for me.
Let's talk a little Hornets really quick.
Yeah.
So your job is still focusing on player development on top of being a member of this coaching staff. But let me ask you this, because it is a buzzword now. People say player development. What does player development mean? So for you, what is it? Because fans hear that and they think, well, what does that look like? What are you doing on a day-to-day basis when you go work out with Nick and Billy and Kemba, even through the pre-draft process? What are those things that you're doing to try to get more out of a player, make him even better at what he already does?
I think player development comes down to working on individual skills that become game applicable. And so if you're just working on individual skills, but it's not something that you're ever going to use in a game, you're wasting time. So in a nutshell, that's player development. Obviously, a lot of coaches are being hired because of their abilities in player development, and a lot of that comes down to your ability to relate to players as well. Because if you can get guys to do certain things for the team, that means you can relate enough that they trust you. And that's what it comes down to, is building those relationships and then basically giving them the truth and saying, this is what's going to help you in your career. This is what's going to help our team be more successful.
at the most basic level, I think this is for most people, but especially in the NBA, players want to know, what can you do for me, right?
Yeah.
How can you make me better? And not in a selfish way, but because this is my craft and I'm going to make a lot of money and I want to make a lot of money and I'm competitive. So they want to know, what can you do for me? That's every day you show up to the office. That's basically your job. What can I do for these guys? Right.
Yeah. And that's, again, it comes down to, I try to find out right away what their motivation is. That's one of the questions I'll ask guys. What's your motivation? What are your goals? And what do you think? Where do you see yourself next year? Just to kind of get a gauge of everything that they're about at that point in time. And you'll hear different things, and then we'll try to see what they want to work on. And sometimes it's outlandish. So what I try to do is I take into account, and I'll give them what they want early. And then eventually when we build that trust, I give them what they need. And that the drill starts changing slightly to an area where I think it'll benefit everybody, and not just benefit them because they think it's fun or it's cool, or I'm going to end up being a 5-man who's going to be a shooting guard next year. We have to figure out the best way to get them to become the best and complete player for the specific franchise.
The game is as skilled as it's probably ever been before. Would you agree or disagree across the board?
I agree. I think it's the training that these kids are getting and the amount of games that they're playing, the combination of all that. It's a different time now. In the past, and I'm not saying it's better. I think there's
because that's a different conversation altogether.
Right. I think a lot of guys are expecting that one-on-one attention when they get to an NBA team now, and that's why you see sometimes guys will bring in outside guys, or guys will work with me. And I think that's where, when I had my own business, I think that's where I can empathize with the guys that are outsiders and understand why guys sometimes want to get away. And I can also understand how to keep the attention of guys by being a coach in the NBA and having my own business at one point in time. So I think that's what's helped me over the course of time. I can keep things creative for guys to a certain point where they're engaged every single time they come in.
What do you think that where we're at, the style of play, where do you, in that skill level, where do you think that originates from? Because I've got a theory, but I wonder where your theory is.
Just
where we're at with basketball now, where, the passing, the dribbling, the way the guys run the floor now. Because you go back as recently as 10 years ago, even in the NBA, it was nowhere near this. But now, just the overall skill level. What do you think has created this kind of, I guess, push for a higher skill level of basketball? Like you said, it's a different game. Yeah. Is it better or not? We can quantify that later on. But just how the game's being played, where do you think that comes from?
I think the NBA did a really good job of going overseas and teaching, and having the best coaches go there, and really trying to attract that market. So you see the European game growing. I think the internet has exploded. I wish I had the ability to go on YouTube or Instagram and follow my favorite players and see what kind of workouts they were doing, or some of the top trainers in the country or the world. So people have access to what's going on out there. And so if you're really dedicated to your craft, you're going to look online and you'll be able to pick some drills up and say, I like that, I'm going to go work on it. So you don't necessarily need somebody to work with you individually, but I think that's definitely something that is viable for a lot of people that maybe didn't have the resources before.
I've read, so Dirk's, and you might know, Dirk's coach that he's had forever, all the way back to his high school days. I've read that when he was going through, and it wasn't just Dirk was one of his guys, he was his most famous student, really. Yeah. But the things that they would do seems literally so foreign to me that how on earth could it work? And then in hindsight, you look back and think, man, that actually worked. And he would have him dribble to jazz music. Yeah. And they would sleep with their basketball on the hardwood at night. And he would have him, when he would be physically exhausted on the court, to the point where his performance was slipping during drills, they'd go off to the side and they'd play chess. Yeah. Because he would work his mind. If you're physically not ready to go, I'm going to work your mind. And he did not want him lifting heavy weights because he wanted him to be flexible and explosive because of his size. That was that was going to be his advantage, right? And you think back to that stuff now, and that was, gosh, almost 30 years ago. That was 20, 25 years ago. People thought he was crazy. Yeah. What are you doing? You've got this immense talent. Get him in the weight room. Yeah. Just start working on your shot. We'll figure out the rest later. But that was skill level that he was working on. It might have been a little odd and a little quirky, but... And you look at Dirk, I think, is the poster boy for today's NBA.
Yeah. I mean, it's when you're able to, what I consider thinking and drilling, it incorporates, it gets applied to thinking and playing. And the more you can do that and train the mind, it's very valuable. And I agree with you. I think when you see a guy that's that size with that skill level, it transcends the game. You know, people look at it, and now you got guys like Kristaps who's looking at Dirk and saying, I want to be like that, and I want to play. You got guys like LeBron looking at players before him and saying, you know, I love his style of play. And
there's an artfulness to it, though, right?
Yeah,
would you agree?
Without a doubt, I think. And again, not everybody's the same. So being able to figure out who you're working with, and everybody's got their own, like I said, their own instrument and their own way of playing that music when they're on the basketball court. So being able to figure out how they like to play and being able to work with them, you can make some good music as a metaphor.
Well, we're going to let you go with this. To that point, that's what you guys are trying to do as a staff. And, you know, Kemba is a perfect example of this. People said, here's what Kemba is, here's his ceiling, until all of a sudden that wasn't anymore. He burst through that ceiling. And to me, I look around the NBA. Victor Oladipo is a great example of this. He changed his body. Nate McMillan put him in a great position last year to play and build a team around him too. But to me, so much of the NBA, yeah, you can draft a LeBron, you can draft a Kobe. It's how do you find the guys on your team and utilize them individually within the collective group of the team. But it's player development, right? You're going to get better. You want to take a big step, it's your own guys with that player development from year to year.
Without a doubt. Yeah, you have to figure out exactly what you're about as a team first, and then from there you're able to design programs and put guys in positions to succeed. And I think that's the most important thing. And I think with the staff that we're putting together, with coaches' philosophy, you could see and feel the energy in the gym. It's just a different environment, and the guys are actually saying that verbally to us. And that's the coolest thing about it, is that when guys are feeling some kind of way, that translates into hopefully better performances and the ability to just continue to work on their craft.
Well, Jay, we've kept you long enough. We're here in Vegas. You got a beautiful night ahead of you. The wife is here. Go have date night, okay? You shouldn't be hanging out with me anymore, okay? Thanks for dropping by.
I appreciate you. Thanks for having me.
It was great to catch up with Hornets Summer League head coach Jay Hernandez, a new member of this Hornets assistant coaching staff, along the bench with new guys like Dutch Gately, who's come over from San Antonio, Ronald Norred, who's come over from the G League, coaching the Nets G League team. Also guys like Chad Iskey, who's come over from the Washington Wizards as well. So it's good to have this whole new coaching staff. We're going to get to know them over the course of the next few weeks and next few months as we build towards the regular season. And we're going to stick out here in Vegas for a few more days and see how the Summer League wraps up. Of course, you can check out Courtside Seats in Apple Podcasts. Just search Courtside Seats. You could search my name, Kroeger, Kroeger. You could search Charlotte Hornets. You'll find us there. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you're leaving a review. Rate for us if you don't mind. You could also find us on our official YouTube channel, along with other great Hornets content. Just search Charlotte Hornets, same thing. Subscribe. You'll keep getting all those videos pushed to you once you go there. And, of course, you could always find us at Hornets.com and the Hornets app. We'll see you guys next Monday back here for Courtside Seats.